Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Let's hear it for Mr. Eric Olson. Come on up here, Eric. Eric Olson he's actually at Origin Ventures, which is a VC firm. He's actually, I should give you the mic here. I already have one. He's also, yeah, I know. He's also the original co-founder of Tech Cocktail. So Eric and I started Tech Cocktail in 2006 in Chicago, Illinois, and we did it for a long time together. So I'm excited to have you here. Obviously, coming out and checking
to be here.
Checking out what we're up to here in Vegas, as well as just to be able to talk and share some stories about things that we've been up to and over the years. So first off, so we started this company like a long time ago with the idea of like bringing people together and better amplifying the local signal in Chicago in 2006. And there was no social media. There was basically blogging. We went out to lunch.
That's true.
We went out to lunch at Potbelly's and
we did.
We said, hey, we got these ideas. Let's try to do this thing where we bring people together and like connect better and tell the story.
Yeah, and I think we thought, no, let's get 50 people in a room. We'll be like, this will be the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, we'll just casually do that. Yeah, that didn't work. It took off. Like we did our first event like a month and a half later, and we got a couple hundred people there. People were super excited. I had and then other people. What happened after that was crazy, right? Like people.
Yeah, I mean it grew really quickly. I mean I think we just we just saw a need that Chicago had and tried to just fill the void and really with we'll talk about community. This is really, that's really what it was all about.
Right.
It was really just trying to bring the community together.
Which is the irony of why the chapter doesn't exist.
It's actually kind of it, because there is a logo of ours right there. But yeah. But anyway, that was the big thing. We were just, we're both part of the community. I think, speaking of like trying to, find co-founders that have varying skill sets and different ideas. I mean, one of those things between the two of us was Frank was sort of the native of Chicago, and like he had this idea to do an event but wanted a co-founder. I was in the same position. I actually talked to a couple other people, like maybe doing an event, but just didn't find a good fit. And I was the guy that was new to Chicago, so I didn't know much about what was happening locally. I had moved there from Boston. I was there for 6 months when we had started it. Right. And was pretty heads down on FeedBurner at the time.
So FeedBurner was based in Chicago. There were, how many people are familiar with FeedBurner?
See how ephemeral this stuff is?
Yeah.
It was a really big startup at one point.
Yeah, it was. It got acquired by Google, right?
Yeah, I mean, Dick's gone on to do some interesting stuff.
So their CEO is now the CEO of Twitter. So anyway, long story short, because I like to do that. Or we can make it longer.
We can make it like the book that was, how many 100,000 words?
So basically, we got together, realized there was an opportunity to work together, and hit it off. You're from Boston, I'm from Chicago. We were talking about baseball. Baseball is always a uniter. Yep. And Cub fans and Red Sox fans have a lot in common back in that day. Yeah.
Sorry, I just have to. All-star voting today, Cubs and White Sox.
They won.
We got in there.
They got in there. Oh, good.
I just want to make sure you.
Yeah,
guys
Rizzo
are
and
aware.
Rizzo and Sally.
Sale. Chris Sale.
Sale. Does he say Sally?
No, I think
I do. Is it Sale?
Yeah.
Oh, I call it Sally.
Sure any Chicago.
Actually, everyone on this thing is.
Cardinals fan.
It's a great organization.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
We're 2-2 in the World Series, though. We're even now.
Yeah.
When you guys beat us in '67, it was like the impossible dream that you guys killed. So I feel like that was tougher.
I don't remember that one.
I don't really either. I wasn't alive then, but it was. But when you grew up a Red Sox fan, the history is drilled into you whether you were alive or not, and it's strangely just as painful.
Sorry to turn us into ESPN.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Baseball. We can talk later about that. Okay, so co-founders. Finding co-founders is tough. It's something somebody always asks. Every question or every time we do an event or we interact online with people, there's a lot of people that reach out like, "How do I find a co-founder?" We did it over a Potbelly sandwich. That's not always the case, and it doesn't always work that way. So maybe you get that question a lot. So you're doing venture work in Chicago and the Midwest. What are some things that you kind of advise people to do?
Well, one thing actually, and I hadn't thought about this till you just said it, and it popped into my head actually. But one of the things was we were introduced by a mutual friend.
Right.
So I think that really at least gives you a basis, because that person's probably got a good idea of how both of you operate.
Don't spoil it. It's in the book.
It's in the book, so if you want to read it, you have to buy this book. But
it's an amazing story.
But so I think that was a big part of it, because we actually had somebody who thought, you guys will really get along.
Right.
And
they were
and that was true.
right.
That was true.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I think the complementary skill sets part is a big deal,
Right.
because you want somebody that's going to push you, but also, in the case, we wanted co-founder for a reason.
Right.
And I think, we had complementary skill sets even in the operating of the business.
Right.
Where, you can see from today, Frank's the front of the house guy. I'm more the back of the house guy. Do the operations, make sure trains run on time.
Yeah.
Stuff that Jen does really well.
Yeah. I'm the front.
You need that.
I dance. I'm a dancer.
Hey, well, you need it.
No, I'm not a dancer. Never mind.
So Frank, he MC it, and I make sure all the sponsors are on the list, all that stuff. So
Right.
I think you just got to find people who really
complement.
are good at, but like doing their own respective stuff that can make a good team. So
That's exactly right. Okay, so team is interesting. Let's talk about that. It's a good segue for our next. So you were at FeedBurner. They got acquired for $100 million from Google. You went to Google for a while. You like most of your team stayed at Google.
that is true.
So like some of the folks that are there are still there. Dick obviously went on to Twitter, but you left.
I did leave.
Why did you leave?
That was interesting. It's funny to think about it because at the time, Google was only 15,000 employees, which for us, we were a 38-person company. I'm more comfortable in a small company environment, so that was one piece of it.
Right.
But actually, I would have been willing to stay there if I could have found the right role.
Right.
I think when I got into the bigger company, I academically understood that they had broken my role into 4 different jobs.
Wow.
It's just because you break it down.
So
when
there's
you're in big
startup life
companies.
for you.
Yeah,
You were doing
yeah.
4 jobs.
Right, and
Yeah.
so I got why they did it. I get it; it makes sense if you're in
Yeah.
a bigger company to compartmentalize those things.
Yeah.
But I literally had a meeting where they asked me to pick one of those things that I like to do, and it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Right.
So I started peeking around, looking for some other stuff. And the first piece of work that I did after leaving, at the request of actually one of our investors, was to go check out this little 4-person company in New York called BuzzFeed. It's kind of funny to think about that now. They were just in this little office right in Chinatown off of I'm gonna forget the name of the street, but it's the one with you can buy all the crazy handbags and all that stuff. Canal Street.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was right above this little office in Canal Street, and no one had heard of it. And one of our investors said, they're gonna need a BD guy. You should go talk to the founder, Jonah Peretti, and he's from the MIT Media Lab. And so I was like, oh, that's great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I went to talk to him, and so this may not be a surprise to all of you, but Frank and I did talk a little bit about what we were going to talk about today. So totally spontaneous. So I'm just going to get right into one of the lessons learned here, which was, I went out there, I worked on the company for hours back and forth between Chicago and New York, and it became pretty clear after a few months that the company hadn't really solidified the business model enough to really know what business development was. And so my lesson learned there was I didn't push it enough when I was in there for the interview of, do they really need me at this point in time in the company? I just thought
They thought they did.
They thought they did.
They need to
but
be
things change, right?
They didn't actually know what that meant.
Right, I think that's
to them.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's something we had talked about it before this whole event was you almost gotta interview the company just as much as you're being interviewed, and that was a good lesson learned. At the time I was 23 and stupid and thought FeedBurner was great and everything was going to be all awesome.
And simultaneously, Tech Cocktail was still functioning on the side as a passion project. So we did that for about 3.5 years.
That's right.
Which is kind of insane.
It was
Think
very
about
insane.
it. We did a lot of nights and weekends, kept it going.
Yeah, because I don't know how many cities we were at the end, after 4 years or whatever. Yeah, it was
8 or
quite a
9.
few.
Yeah. But so I talk about that in the book and the flexibility that we had because of the employers.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of our first investors had been asking me to join the firm, and so that's when the BuzzFeed thing was not didn't make sense at the time. I decided to root down in Chicago and go to the venture side, which really helped with the Tech Cocktail piece, obviously, because there was a good reason to be doing that when you're in the venture business too, to be helping build communities. So.
And so we saw community 15 times. We said that. So as we were doing that, though, Chicago. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So, and just in general, I think this was happening in other places. It wasn't Silicon Valley or New York. The funding situation was interesting. There wasn't funding for companies. So I talk about it in the book. The bigger story of it got kind of cut out, unfortunately, but not this story. Another story. So not just
this
you.
Is the part that I worked on a little bit.
Yeah, this is Eric's part. So pretty much everyone on this panel. This is just a make up kind of panel. Anyway, just kidding. It's not. Just kidding. It is. Okay. So Grubhub is a company that was based in Chicago. They were at our second event. Matt and Mike came. They basically had started this company. They believed that you'd basically order your food on your computer. And at the time, that was insane. No one believed you. They believed in them, right?
There were no smartphones.
There was no phone. Yeah, no phones. There was no social. It was literally you order it at work, I guess, or at home, or on your laptop if you had connectivity at home, and get your food. And it's crazy to think that it was only like 2004 to 2006 they were doing this on the side, and couldn't get anybody to believe in them, couldn't get any funding. But they kept going. They came to our event. They came to some other events. They did. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, so they definitely demoed at our event. Yeah. They ended up winning the New Venture Challenge. I think it was either the first or second time that the University of Chicago had ever done it. Now it's become a bigger thing. But they won that, and then they caught the eye of actually my current group of partners.
So it comes full circle.
Yeah, it does come full circle. So which actually, they had talked a lot at that event, so it was kind of a fun tech cocktail story. But one thing I will say that one thing I noticed looking back, so for those who don't know, Grubhub IPO'd
in April.
A couple months ago, which is a big deal for them, for our firm, for the city. I mean, it was a great success story that seemingly was overnight, but was obviously not.
Very long time.
So there's a couple lessons there which we can talk about. But the other one was, if you look back, I don't know if you guys posted it on the IPO, but if you look back to the video that we have of them demoing in 2006, it is literally, I mean, they had a very crisp pitch and value proposition then that Matt still says in the same way today. And it was just very consistent, very focused, and they just kind of rammed that thing home over and just grinded it out.
And timing.
Yeah, the timing piece is we talked about that earlier. The timing piece is important too because the growth of smartphones
we
really
didn't have
propelled
these, right? Like it was now you can order while you're on the train on the way home or whatever.
And you give them credit for being, seizing the opportunity early and saying, that's going to really help us grow our business as an enabler and getting on there.
So, do you think you just recently wrote a blog post about luck versus skill?
I did.
Let's talk a little bit. Do you think that was? It was. Yeah, we're basically stalking you. Do you think that? How you feel? Let's talk about luck. Because do you think that was luck? I mean, what was the thing there? Like they didn't give up, obviously.
They didn't give up. I mean, in some sense, I don't think anybody had this thought that you're going to have this big rise of smartphones, which I think really contributed to that business at the end of the day. So in some ways, there's some luck in terms of how things end up panning out in terms of maybe for Grubhub, I mean, who knows, but maybe it was more of like how big of a success it was going to be rather than will it work or not. I mean, it was working already, but this just really, pushed it in the right direction, and they were able to capitalize on a new technological innovation. And so, in some sense, I think you can think that's luck, but I think the reality is, and actually in the blog post I reference it, but Michael Lewis of Moneyball fame and Liar's Poker and all those books, he did a great commencement speech at Princeton a couple of years ago where he basically was like, look, no one's going to admit it, but a lot of this stuff comes down to luck. Now, do you have to be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they come to you? Yes. You need to be ready to go and you need to work hard and all these things, but that won't guarantee anything. You'll have to get a break at some point. And he talks about it relative. Speaking of wanting to be an author, that was his dream too. And
so we're very similar. We should probably.
You're exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys should be best friends.
Right, we should.
You should tweet him about that.
I'm going to right now.
But he talks about it in this commencement speech where he says, I wrote this paper I brought to my I forget what class it was, but brought it to my professor and he said, hey, what'd you think of the writing? And the professor said to him, don't make a career out of it.
And he went and did that.
Yeah, and he ended up doing it. And he ended up doing it because he randomly, through a bunch of random collisions, basically. See what I did there?
Yeah, I saw that.
Random collisions with people. Got the job at Solomon Smith Barney to get like a real job, but that gave him the front row seat to write Liar's Poker, which no one else would have had. And he was able to capitalize on that. But it was a lot of luck along the way.
So the book talks about luck and increasing your luck by doing, increasing your luck surface area, which ultimately means like getting out there and being a part of the community, getting out there and sharing your story, getting out there and marketing in the right way.
It's true, right? I mean, like if you look at Michael Lewis, I mean, the guy did go to Princeton after all.
Yeah.
I mean, so he was working hard. He was doing the right things, and I'm sure not all of his classmates are as successful as him. So there had to be some luck there, but I'm sure they're all doing well or whatever. I mean, they went to Princeton, and they're smart people, right? So to your point, that certainly increases your luck surface area. Going to a great school, surrounding yourself with really smart people, right? All those things.
Right. Is there anything else you want to share?
That is a very open-ended question. Yeah. Let me see. Well, we wrote some notes down.
I know. I think we already talked. Oh, do you want to talk about music?
No, we can skip that question.
Okay.
I did want to mention, in case anybody, I'm really obsessed with the luck versus skill debate. I just read a really great book called the Success Equation. Highly recommended. Only after you read the book. Second book you should buy.
Yeah. So anybody looking to read anything.
Because it'll basically expand on the Lux surface area chapter of the book.
Right.
And give you more of a little framework.
Does it
about how
have
to
a
think about
community
things.
chapter?
No community.
Okay.
That probably got cut. You probably worked on it. Got cut.
You've been really busy, Andy. Oh boy.